Hello, listeners. I'm your host Jayasree, and you're listening to TALRadio, powered by Touch a Life Foundation. As a part of providing you with inspiring and informative content, today we have Rajesh Soundararajan, CEO 300 Million Citizens Challenge, Katha. Katha, founded by Geeta Dharmarajan in 1988, is an Indian NGO dedicated to empowering underprivileged communities through literacy, education, and storytelling. Their initiatives include Katha Lab School for innovative education, Katha Books promoting reading, Katha Utsav for literary celebrations, and Katha Khazana providing skill development for women. Katha fosters socioeconomic empowerment and education accessibility for marginalized groups in India. 300 Million Citizens Challenge is a wonderful initiative among many by Katha, where they aspire to educate 300 million people who in turn would educate many more. Without any further ado, let's welcome Mr. Rajesh Soundararajan onto our show. Hello, Mr. Rajesh. Welcome to TAL Radio, and it's wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you, Jayasree. The feeling is mutual.
Wonderful, sir. So, to begin with, let's understand what Katha actually is. So, what is Katha?
Okay. Katha is a story. So I'm going to give a little bit of the story of Katha, right? So Katha started with a very simple credo. No child will live in poverty. That's the very simple credo we started out with, right? And it started out in 1988 by Geeta Dharmarajan, who's the founder. And in the slums of Govindpuri in Delhi, Govindpuri is an urban slum in Delhi, and it started out. And in the very initial stages, Geeta used to go out with, she came with a magazine called Tamasha magazine, and children would not go to school. And used to go and tell parents, why don't you take children to school? Why don't they attend the school? So they couldn't read. They didn't like school. It was too difficult for them, right? So then it started off taking the story, Tamasha magazine, telling stories to children, and suddenly children would congregate all over, right? And like honeybees coming over. So, which is when Geeta said, okay, if this is what it is, how can we make stories as a means to get children to read, to learn, to go to school? So, it started off with just 5 children, and story is the center of everything that Katha does. So children come from all over. These are migrant children from really the underserved communities. They would come and they would flock around and listen to stories. And through stories, a lot of things are being learned. A lot of things are being taught, right? And that is how Geeta ji said, let's use stories as a means to get children to learn, get children to read, and slowly Katha was built. In fact, when you think of Katha, right, Katha itself is an acronym. It's knowledge, awareness, training for holistic advancement. KATHA, knowledge, awareness, training for holistic advancement. Not many know about it. That's why when we write Katha, Katha is in capitals usually, and there is a meaning to that. So Katha is a story, Katha is an acronym, Katha is a framework for basically for children to learn and grow. And that's Katha for you.
Absolutely wonderful. The acronym is astounding because the way the foundations of Katha are built is so beautifully explained. Thank you so much. And until I spoke to, even I was assuming Katha as a story alone. But yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. Um, all right, having understood the background of Katha, what is the mission of Katha?
Uh, Katha has a credo. I'll just give a little bit about the mission itself, how it comes. Credo,
Please.
it's uncommon creators for common good, right? So we are extremely creative organization. We keep thinking innovative and new ways to really engage the child. Child is at the center of us, right? So before I go into mission, let me go into the vision first, if at all we have to talk about, right? As an organization, we said no child, and that's what we said, no child will live in poverty, right? And the way we define poverty is a little different from the way people understand poverty, right? We define poverty as a spice poverty, SPICE, spice. Social poverty, we don't want child to be in a social poverty. Personal leadership, P is for personal leadership. I is intellectual, cultural, and environmental poverty, right? it's defined very differently. It's not just the economic poverty that we talk about, but how can we integrate them comprehensively into building social skills, building social awareness, creating a free and fearless world, right? Personal leadership, right? How do we get intellectually stimulate them? How do you have culturally integrate them? And how do they care for the earth, right? So when we talk of all this, that's integrated into everything that we do. So our children are socially aware. They have built in their leadership skills. They are free, fair, fearless. They have personal leadership. They have societal leadership. They take projects which they learn in the school and go back and implement in the society. For example, when there is something about recycling, they are the ambassadors who go and get even in that slum community, in the communities where they belong, to make sure a recycling exercise. They take leadership in these areas, right? Then, of course, for intellectual poverty, we have a framework. We call it LSSRW. Of course, knowledge is there, but listening, speaking, storytelling, reading, and writing. So, when we're talking of intellectual poverty or getting them out of intellectual poverty, these are the skills we build into them, right? And of course, the cultural poverty is where we bring stories from all over the country. We have stories from 21 states, initially translated into English and Hindi, but subsequently into 10 languages, right? So we have stories from Gujarat, stories from Koli tribes in Maharashtra. We have stories from Jharkhand. We have stories from Manipur. So we are trying to bring culturally a lot of Ladakh, for example, and we bring stories from Tamil Nadu together and make it available to everyone. And through stories, they learn, right? And environmental priorities. Interesting, we are talking of environment today. When Katha started in 89 itself, very early, we started having uh, environment and earth preservation as a core subject, core topic, core thought, right? So, in that way, Katha was way ahead of its time, I would say, in terms of a thought process. So, if you go back to from that vision, what is the mission we are coming down to, right? For us, it is very simple. We want to reach millions and millions of children, underserved children preferably, right? To spread the joy of reading. We want to spread the joy of reading to millions and millions of children, and through reading, they learn. How do we do that? We do that with strategic interventions and grassroots partnerships. See, we understand because of with 300M, we understand we can't do it all alone. Earlier, we used to work ourselves, work with governments. But 300M, we actually go and work with strategic and grassroots partnership to bring this whole thing to people who really make a difference in the grassroots, right? And that will also augment our reach, is a lot more sustainable, right? And that's what we do, right? And we do this. Why do we do this, right? Uh, we do this to combat social injustice and get them out of poverty. I mean, I'd still go back, right? Get children out of poverty, right? So we do this to combat social injustice and get them out of poverty. So that's what we do with active story-based learning, community engagement, and quality education. That's what we do.
Absolutely wonderful.
Right.
Absolutely wonderful, Mr. Rajesh. Uh, the core values of your mission and the core values of Katha are so beautiful that I truly wish every child gets benefited from it. And there is one tiny question that I have from whatever we spoke just now. Katha has started with storytelling. That's how the at least the base of it has begun. So, what
Yes.
is the speciality of Katha when there are multiple publications for children's books already?
Okay. So yes, there are a lot of books, and books are everywhere. We encourage everyone to read books, right? And for
Yes.
us, books are not just reading; they're not just stories, right? It's a means for societal transformation. It's not read the book, go back and sleep. The books are supposed to transform you, and that's something we believe at the core of it, right? For us, books are about cultural preservation, right? We need It's about bringing together the different cultures and making it available. For us, books are about linguistic diversity. I just told you how we are from 21 languages and bringing it to 10.
Yes.
It is not just another story. It is a story from that child Sonam in Ladakh. It is this story from this child in Manipur, right? And through the story, we are bringing in the culture of the place. Yet, there are stories about homecoming stories. These are stories about children from Tibet. What would it be to lose a home? What it would be? So these are not just stories of a child which you read in most of these scenarios, right? I mean, the stories have a lot more depth. And when you're talking of cultural preservation, each of our books are illustrated, absolutely creative illustrations, right? We have MF Hussein's of the world illustrating our book. So when you take a Katha's book, you're not just taking a book and reading it. There is a message in it. There is a culture in it. There is a linguistic diversity in it. Then we start integrating the education, what we call uh, C9 skills, like 21st century skills. Every book at the end of it makes you pause and talk. It is about critical thinking, it could be about curiosity, about creativity. So our books are integrated into subjects, languages it builds, and C9 skills. And that's what makes it unique, right? I'll give an example. A book on how to weigh an elephant, right? It is a story. It's a story of the child who was acutely girl child who helps the king weigh his favorite elephant by getting it onto a boat and weighing it and finding the weight of the, right. It's a very interesting story. But through the book, the pedagogical approach is the children learn about buoyancy, learn about Archimedes principle. It is physics, right? And the book has 0 words, child who can learn a 30 words, it can be 60 words and 600 words. So it is a language learning exercise, it is a subject integrating, it is about critical thinking. So we don't look at books as pure reading, though the joy of reading is, of course, always there, but it's a lot more, right? And finally, all of our books rather, have one or two or more big ideas. What do we call big ideas? So every book is about gender, earth, equity, or kindness. So when you read any of our books, it's what we call as invisible curriculum. There is an invisible message. We are talking of gender. We might be talking of inclusiveness in terms of equity, about uh, what you call children who are specially abled, or it could be about class of societies. We are talking of inclusiveness. So the books have a message, and we don't go and say, hey, you know what, this book is about that. It just is so subtle that the child reads and understands and starts internalizing these core ideas: gender, equity, earth, and kindness. Right. So, not surprisingly, yes, we have a lot of awards and recognition, countless international awards at a book level, at an organization level. Uh, the authors and illustrators have been extremely grateful to the editors, authors, and content. These are names you would uh, really fall after. Even today, we bring adaptations of Rabindranath Tagore, right? Kamala Das, about poetry. So we have both authors, international, and a lot of Indian authors and illustrations. So I think in case of Katha, when we are talking more than a book, right? We're not
True.
talking about just another book, right? It's not a commercial activity for us. It's not a commercial. We're not competing with publishers out here, right? That's not the game. In fact, our books are also, you used Katha Utsav when you started off, right? And it's a very interesting concept. When people write stories, we publish stories. It's called bias for us. So the stories come from children and gets published. So I think it's a sort of a movement uh, than just call a book, which you compete with other publishers, right? It's a story of children. It is a story for children, by children, for the children, of the children.
Beautiful democracy for children in that case. Wonderful. Very, very beautifully explained. And uh, now that you have explained it in detail about why Katha is so special, it definitely makes sense that you're also incorporating the gender equality, the love for earth, and environmental education into it, and a lot more that is integrated into your books, just in the form of a story, and that's absolutely wonderful for children to learn from. And including this, there are a lot more initiatives done by Katha. Two of them, which are pretty famous, that are doing really wonders, is Katha Lab School and the Katha 300 million. So, could you please explain about both of them and how do they impact our society?
Okay, Katha Lab School is what started off in Delhi in 1988. That's what in Govindpuri slums,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, I think if you ever go to Delhi, you should visit Katha Lab School. It's like an oasis in the desert, right? And that's how I would. It's midst of the migrant slum community. It's beautiful. It's
Wow.
buzzing with activity, with thousands of children. Um, um, it's it's very earthy feel about it. It's one of those things. Uh, if you might mistake the colors and the way it is done up to Santorini of Greece, right? It's a very nice place where children love to come. Uh, it's more like an unclassed room. There's a lot of story. There's energy, enthusiasm. Children come together and learn. So that is also, there's a word called lab school, right? A lot of our thought processes, a lot of our interventions, a lot of our um, what should we do in the future are all tested out there. And this is a milieu of children, thousands of them, right? So here, in midst of their poverty, you will see a lot of smiling faces, and children come and um, enjoying themselves and learning. And you'll also find in this sort of a community, usually the boys usually outnumber the girls. But here in lab school, you will see girls everywhere, right? So it's important. It's important, and girls don't drop out. It starts with very young age, 2.5-year-old Balawadi's children, migrant workers drop their children and go, and all the way it goes uh, through the schooling. They don't drop out during fifth, eighth, or during their puberty. The girls, they do not drop out. They continue their education up to grade 10, grade 12. And then at the end of it, then we also have a lab school, has Katha School of Entrepreneurship. So some of them might take occasional courses into baking or animation and design, right? We have a STEM and robotics lab. So in a way, mm, when a child comes there, there is a path all through for them, and everything there is learned through stories, right? Then there is an English learning lab as well. It's, we call it Kenga. There is about English learning lab, which is important. We do believe much as native language through native language plus one, right? They start with native language plus one. So Katha children speak English, good English, and the reason English is a force multiplier in their parental incomes. When they go back to their, they start earning 10x to 100x is what the parental income sees the growth. Definitely 10x, right? And that changes the trajectory of the family. That changes the trajectory of the community, right? Katha Lab School is one of those examples, right? And the teachers coming from the community, they have passed out, they have gone in, we employ them, re-employ them again. They become teachers, they understand what it is, right? So in a way, we have a school that is sustainable, that is self-sustaining, caters to the community. We have futuristic in terms of having robotics, STEM labs, and so on and so forth. And in fact, we have pass outs of the school who are IAS officers. And these are slum children, mind you. We are not talking of one of those elite schools. We are talking of kids whose parents wouldn't have had money to send them to school. And this is all free school there, right? So there are IAS rankers. When you go into the other day, one of our colleagues went into an American embassy, and the principal of the school was sitting there, and then the person comes out, "Ma'am, you are this, you are." So I don't recognize you. Oh, this is what I was a pass out. I'm now in the US consulate, right? And you don't sit, you don't stand in the line. You sit, and the visa was processed, right? So we are amazed sometimes. Children are all over in Dubai, in US, baking classes. They are working for the best of the. Some of those kids are entrepreneurs today, have a bakery
Wow.
chain in Delhi. So I think when you start looking at Katha Lab School, it's outreach directly involved in the community. They work a lot in the community with the women there, empowering them, community leaders. We call She Square. So a lot of work that we do in and around the lab school in Delhi. That's one part, right? Of course, a little extension of that is we work with the Delhi government. The same model is taken sometimes, and the lab school concept itself taken. We work with the governments across. You mentioned Katha Shala and all those, right? These are places because we take school quality enhanced program. We work with the Delhi government. So this is what Katha's physical on the ground reach is. An experiment, a lot of innovation, enthusiasm, bringing children together. That's Katha Lab School for you, right? Now, the second part of your question was, what is 300M? Why
Yes.
300M Citizens Challenge, right? So 300M Citizens Challenge brings the books part of it, the stories part of it, which Katha is known for on one side, right? Then it takes everything that we do as a pedagogical approach from a lab school and brings these two together and puts them onto a platform, usually a technology platform, in this case, learn.katha.org. But we want to take this to length and breadth of the country. That's 300M, right?
Mm.
But 300M Citizen Challenge roots, and that is what we want to. I need to explain a little bit about 300 million Citizens Challenge also. Is in 2016, UNESCO reports that 50% of India's children are not reading at grade level, and which is the same in 2014. 2024 ACER report says pretty much the same thing, 47%. It still cannot read at grade level, right? I mean, you read the ACER report recently. Now, when will this get fixed? Primary education will get to 2084, 2084. That's long. To have India's children read at grade level is going to be another 2084, right? Like another 60 years. I mean, we should be crazy. I mean, to even accept this as citizens, right?
Accept that
We
fact.
it's
True.
just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable, right? We can't be a developed nation talking of these sort of numbers. So, which is when in 2016, uh, Geeta ji and Katha, we came out with a concept saying, okay, this problem is no more. We can't leave it to too important to be left to governments, too important to be left to a few entities, unless this is a social movement. This is a unless we have 150 million children who can read, 150 children who cannot read. Unless this
Mm.
set of people, if each child teaches a child, and this ownership becomes an initiative, it becomes a community initiative. Everyone takes this and moves. That's the only way we can attempt solving this even, right? So that is how 300 million citizens challenges are done, where the 150 million children who can read, who can to do, can they actually take it and teach the children who cannot read? So that's like the magic waiting to happen, right? So towards that, the whole program is leverage, engage. There is a advocacy and partnership, leap, right? Leverage, engage, advocacy, and partnership. So this is how 300 million citizens challenge. What are the things we can do to partner with uh, the rights organizations, to be an advocate, to engage children, to leverage what is existing? So 300 million citizen challenge brings the best of Katha in terms of books, in terms of uh, lab school experience, and we spread it by technology and partnerships. Partner can be a child, can be a facilitator. We have partners who are shelter homes. We have partners who are orphanages, blind schools, anganwadis, right? Community radio stations. Whichever way we can reach, let us reach these children. And get them to love reading, let them read at grade level. So 300 million citizen challenge, you can say, is taking uh, Katha score and give some sort of a force multiplier to it. So lab school and
Wonderful.
300 million citizens. One is internally developing like a lab, and outside as a taking it out as an open source.
Wonderful. Now, that's a mission to have. And I truly appreciate the entire team of Katha for taking up such amazing and incredible challenge, which is absolutely great. Um, Now that we are towards the end of our interview, there's one last question that I have for you. After understanding your mission and your initiatives and whatever you've been doing so far, what is the future that you see for Katha?
Uh, Wonderful. With that sort of a huge uh, canvas to paint on, right? It could be an infinite future, right? If I were to put it simply. But uh, okay, in a way, what we have, in a way, has been a lot of validation, right? A lot of validation of what we have done. Nipun Bharat, its things are coming together. When we are talking of NEP 2020, Nipun Bharat, what they're talking of in a Panchadi system is exactly what we do in story pedagogy of what we call active story based learning, right? Uh, so there is a recognition to that. There is a recognition to native plus one. We use the local mother tongue plus one. I think Nipun Bharat is saying native via native to English, right? There is a huge focus now on 21st century skills, what we call as me skills, me plus skills, and we skills, right? On creativity, curiosity, critical thinking, right? Then build competence and move all the way to collaboration and citizenship. So there is a C9, and that's so it's coming together. In fact, then if you look at World Economic Forum's recent report on Education 4.0, uh, we're very fortunate. Sometimes we feel uh, honored and proud. I know in this industry you don't call proud, but then because every word on that in World Economic Forum education uh, document, future of education document, looks like what we have spoken for 30 years, right? So when we start talking of these things, or IEEE, the 300 million citizens challenge is on a IEEE case study. It is talking of uh, how a technology should be used to educate children without compromising on their private details. So uh, I think whatever we have done so far is on a good ground, right? We keep our nose to the ground with Katha, with KLS. We have something we started working in the future for the future on something much deeper on indigenous communities with this Katha, Adivasi, and Dalit labs, right? So this is working in different places. For example, in Paraverkadu, in remote place, a fisherman community. And these are hardcore indigenous people. How do we take their knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, and get it to the world? They're amazing in what they may not be able to read. They may not be able to uh, talk the way we do, but it doesn't mean they don't have knowledge. So it needs to be two ways. So there is a lab, 2 years of work, 3 years of work is happening. I visited just a couple of weeks back. Uh, I was blown, and I took my son with me to that, and he says he studies in a big school, and says, but he was sitting there in grade 9 and learning from a grade 4 child from the
Wow.
Katha, Adivasi, and Dalit lab child, right? Things that we did not even know about. And they seem to be rattling it out. So I think there is a lot of knowledge we have in indigenous communities across the country. So the big challenge we are taking on for the future is also take how do we get the indigenous knowledge and mainstream, right? Uh, Second big thing we are looking at is how do we leverage technology and these sort of partnerships to do impact at scale, right? That's the sort of thing. 300 million comes in that particular direction. So all the things that we have done, in a way, I think we are in a good place. We will use partnerships, technology. Our strength has been in terms of languages, uh, host of features, host of content, uh, building every day, making it available for partners. We are upskilling teachers uh, above and beyond what their academic sessions are across the country. So I think we have the next 5 years, we do see ourselves very busy and beyond hope. I think, much as all of us would wish that our children get to grade level reading, not 2084, but I think we have work cut out uh, for many, many years to come. But again, going
Wonderful.
back, I think books are our soul, but our goal is much bigger in creating a free, fair, and fearless India. So our children, when they are
Wonderful.
free, fair, and fearless, if our children can do that with the skills that they have, we would really have moved the needle that little bit.
Absolutely wonderful. The way you are envisioning the future with the Katha values and the entire nation, the free, fearless, and the fair, three F's. Absolutely beautiful ideology, I must say. And the children are supposed to be like that because they are the future. And, it's rightful that we pave the way beautifully for them. So I'm really grateful for all the work that you do. And it was amazing talking to you today. And thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh, for your valuable time and energy today. I hope our listeners truly benefit from whatever we've spoken today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jayasree. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks. So that was Mr. Rajesh Soundararajan for all of you today. And you're listening to Tal Radio, powered by Touch a Life Foundation. This is your host, Jayasree, signing off for today. Stay tuned and keep learning.